So I titled this Emotions. I'm like, we need to improve this thing here. I know. Emotions. Sometimes you can get so tied up in here it is the different things that bother us. I'm bothered. And I think that maybe perhaps the reason I'm bothered is because when we think about our mental, right? We think about our mental. A lot of times people want to separate our mental, our emotions. Mental and emotions are about the same thing. However, when I was growing up, don't wear your emotions on your sleeve. Now, what do you mean by that? Don't wear your emotions on your sleeve. And then when we look at mental, we know that we're talking about our brain, right? And when we think about our brain, we know that it is the central nervous system. So our bodies and everything, it functions. So anyway, I saw at the seeing that movie, I saw some science where they want to talk about lasers. Okay. So these lasers, not drones, people, not drones. Even though drones, they can take pictures, they can fly around. Then maybe I changed this from emotions to talk about drones. Okay. But it's not drones because drones take pictures, they can fly around. Sometimes some of them are invisible or they're very small, you can't see them. But this is the thing about lasers. Okay. Now with those lasers, um, they can. I don't know if you've ever seen. I don't want. It's one of those sci-fi movies and like Terminator or whatever, and they're using the laser guns or they're showing the laser where they can look at your infrared and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I was explaining to those people. I was like, well, they were identifying with they, and you saw like the little drones and everything, and then you see these people like they're in machines, like iRobot. You know what I mean? So you have these people, they, okay, who have been trying to uh, influence, let's say, a mental or emotion about not about us correcting our life, but something else to kind of dilute. Here it is, the way that we may think about ourselves, our own intellectual property, our will, our effort. For somebody to sit there and say, oh, well, listen, here it is, we're doing these different things this way. And then you know readily that the thought is that your success would have been something different than someone else trying to police it or the Matrix, because the Matrix was mentioned, okay? The Matrix was mentioned. But to know that there's science right now and that people who are trying to influence, not Men in Black, because we've seen Men in Black too, influence the way we think or to talk about all the things that they can do that's in science, the doctor and all the other kind of thing. Now that is a mental thing, it's an emotion. Oh, submit. So when you see the movie, talk about obey and well, really it said obey and watch TV. So I said, lo and behold, here it is, that little laser story. I started thinking about Independence Day. The people are like, hey, 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 hey. And, on top of the thing. And then they brought on the laser, and the laser beam, and then like that. Lasers, people. So anyway, they're going to show this little thing. A little, not the same thing as those little aliens and they. But they brought in a little machine, and they want to show us how they're able to use laser. And I ain't gonna fib to you, honey. Like round, honey, our brain matters. They want to talk about brain, scientific brain, neuroscience. Now I know we got a few good people who talk about neuroscience and brain and all the other kind of stuff, but to talk about those lasers and yet us be in denial about here it is some of these. So listen, so the man he gets now he was wrong. This is the day. He was wrong because he went out on a tangent trying to, get the machines. But he had to put on the glasses. So I had to explain to them is that the man had to put on the glasses in order to see whatever it was he was seeing. Now they were all in the alley fighting him and the black man. So we're black and white. Him and the black man, they fighting and squabbling. The black man, they won't put it on. Not that he was in denial or anything, or maybe he wanted to be naive. But then when he did put on the glasses, everything was cool. It didn't go down to no showdown until they got to a group. You didn't see nobody else in the group shooting outside. Here it is, the white man. I don't know. Maybe it's titled right. Emotions. So, oh, they, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay, we could talk about we sleep and they live. I don't know which is which, but I know they, for a lot of people, no, we don't like that. No, that's the thing. We don't want to argue about science, but when you want to tell me how you trying to operate and do all this doctoring, and they want to be like, okay, well, this, that, and the other, and look at all the things that we could do, not so much about me submitting to my health. It's my health. The first step would be shut the fuck up. And I'm not talking to me. I'm not talking to anybody else. I'm talking about here it is, the one that have the capacity to use lasers. Okay? And then that heat. We've seen these movies. Let's not be in denial. Now, what is it that we're going to be doing about that? And yes, they have cool temperature too. I mean, when you think about the precipitation of Earth, then you should know that it is also man-made. We are in the skies, my love. Now I'm like, well, I'm like, huh. We could sit there and talk about the sky. We could talk about astronomy, but I'm gonna let you know right now, the abyss is the sky. I'm sure that they have not been places, and yet they're trying to get there, and yet we're already on other planets. So then, why do you suppose that all this other stuff is going on with all this colorism? And we know that we are on other planets. Mm. Emotions. The emotion is when a child is born onto the earth and you pinch it, the baby knows. Okay? The baby knows already, the newborn baby, already know how to suck. You put the baby on a mother's bosom, it already has its own succulent. It does that. The brand new newborn baby. As soon as it come out of the womb, if you pinch it, you spank it, it's gonna cry. After a few days on earth, it's gonna tell you it needs to be changed. Some babies, maybe about a good month or two, honey, they already been able to identify one thing or the other, and then they do this. You see them, and when about what 6 months or what they do this, they want you to hold them. No, we could call that emotions, or we could just call that their senses. They do this. Come on, give me some sugar. So we are born on this earth with some knowledge of know-how. Now we are taught some things like how to eat with chopsticks. We are taught how to, speak another language. Because we hear that inside of our home. We learn how to walk. Did anybody have to teach us how to walk, or were they encouraging us to walk? Matter of fact, I had met some mothers, and some of these mothers, they was like, "No, we don't want to." They'll walk on their own. They didn't want to walk them. They want them to walk on their own. You know what I mean? Like how some parents they'd be like, "Come on, baby, come on, come on." No, it's like, no, let the baby do whatever they're gonna do. Allow them to crawl. You get some of you understand where I'm coming from? So anyway, we look at that now. Go back into here. It is our crown. Okay, so this is our crown. And then you could talk about cranium, but I ain't talking about that little machine, okay? I'm talking, like the machine that, go do high buildings and everything, and you're able to build buildings with that. Man, that thing almost went to Babylon. Yeah. But I mean, your cranium, your brain, okay? So anyway, they're like, okay, They can see us. This thing went beyond, let's just talk about Men in Black, or twice. They can see us. Well, they already knew that. They had to watch and everything when they was able to do the thing and they disappear and all that other kind of stuff. And we saw a little bit about iRobot. I'm just repeating it. Emotion. Do you want somebody to be telling you how to do this and do that? Now, when you begin to listen to people and start talking about race, now race is not just a color. The race could be a amount of things, okay? I don't want us to think about race as a color because they have already identified human rights and the Declaration of Human Rights in colorism. So race can be one thing or the other. Somebody just at a race to try to mind control you. Oh Lord, that's awful. You know what I mean? And then anyway, I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't think I want to be for real. It's enough for some people. That's another thing. I'll go into that another conversation with that. But to talk about human rights and then to talk about science and what that means, and then in that watch to have some group of people, not so much about, oh, look, let them do on their own, that walking, the little baby. And then that other thing to say, well, listen, this education and things are there for you. Now we could go around and around about who learned how to read first, who learned how to do the first arithmetic. Come on, people, you learn those things from your parents. Okay, before you went to school, mom already said A, B, C, D. She's already giving you the information. Your parents did it way before you went to a teacher. When you got to school, matter of fact, even before you got to school, you knew how to write. You doodled something. You doodled something. Okay, but let's go back into this thing here. Real emotion, mental, your body, your being. Something want to be like they want to talk about some spirit realm. They want to put all these gods in there. Then I'm like, oh, this stuff is now man now because you sitting there, you talking to me, and then I'm like, well, honey, I think that when we start looking at peace, they tell you rest in peace or be in peace. Peace is two. Okay, so you have PEACE and PIECE. So that peace went like, oh, and then peace like we're talking about a weapon. So anyway, when we look at, let's say, the peace, and then that you see as a form of war, war is not peaceful. Okay, so we can look at one thing or the other. It's not so much about warring with yourself, but it was something that was used to be like, well, I love you more, to tell you the very thing that I tricked you into. So now we go into something where I want to be like, oh, listen, see, we're the deceiver. Oh, blah, 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 we could go here. And then I was in this place, and they want to tell me that because I was here in this place, they wanted to remove me, Lord have mercy, from here it is. Woo-hoo, I'm not gonna go there. And wanted me to see the good or the bad to come out of me. I just said, I ain't gonna feel be. The woman said, boy, I mean this shit. She said, I really have a light. I said, and at that moment I just thought of that. They wanted to set me up to be in an addicted or a drug environment, to now be like, okay, see, we just want to see what you're going to do. See, this is all the things. This is the real one. This is what you was already doing. And then had all the little set into some shit. And I'm like, well, there are people who really do need, and then yet they want to imply they want to imply that they didn't want to help the people because they want to help themselves. But yet here it is. They put all that form here. Emotions, people, emotions, mental. Then you start thinking about your well-being and everything. You knew you were right, but then something else wanted to doctor on you and all that kind of thing. Emotions, doctor on you, emotions. What does that mean? You get some people, they be so upset. I mean, not mannerism, but behaviorism. We'll get people upset. And so I be looking at myself and I look at other people. And it's just like for real, when you find yourself in a peaceful place, you don't hear nothing. You don't hear nothing. And then it's like, okay, well, listen, we want to, matter of fact, when I tell you that I enjoy peace, I don't look at TV, I don't play the radio every now and again. I like it quiet. And unfortunately, I found myself in a very noisy place and situation for that to call itself, well, my Lord. Oh, well, here it is, those things that control you, or those things and this, that, and the other. I was like, well, honey, I'm aware of all of that. We have people right now who may emotionally not not happy because we have allowed those people, they, to take advantage of our rights or our peace. And then yet we rarely know that there's something going on because we have books that are written on that, okay? And there's advocacy for that. And those people who may be feeling like as if they're ostracized and they'll be like, well, then look, it's this one, it's this one, it's this one. Oh, see, we're trying to balance it out and even it out. Oh, you want to help these people out of girl. It's emotion, you know, emotion. It wouldn't be like it one. It's like, well, one moment, that one moment done passed and gone, and then talking about how it will come back. It's unfair. It's not so much about talking about Bruce Almighty or to sit there and talk about fame and fortune. Mm-mm. And we have people who are out there advocating for mental health. And then what about emotion? Not the motion to do something. Mm. They want to go back and forth about an E and then emotion. Motion. I think we used to hear what's it? Oh, motion in the ocean. Okay. And then when you're looking at, let's just say, I mean, a war with words, and they were telling me this other day, they were telling me, or and they M was someplace else. But yes, we studied the dictionary. I was like, honey, the dictionary was one of the first books that we learned how to read or review or study, and we know all about it. But then I'm like, well, you look at some things, the terminology are different in different subjects. It's not so much about knowing a whole lot of words that you may not use, but how the words were being used as a form of war. I mean, literally, we've have some information from yesteryears of how they've been able to use the words, and this is the reason why we were able to get more than one definition for a word. Okay, so it's like, okay, oh, is this one? Is this one? So you find, we're on the right, we're on the left, oh no, the other right, no, the other left. You understand? And then, oh no, this is what it means, and this, and it, I mean, they were having a war with words, trying to encircle what it meant, thou and they, us and we. It's like, wow, it's too much. Too much meaning that it's such an unnecessary thing. And I got that from here. It is someone else. It's just like too much into an unnecessary thing, then yet it has a value to our conversation of where we're going. The war with words. I know we've seen that movie, The War with the Roses. War with the Roses, or was it? I know we had Guns and Roses. Oh gosh, it's like wow. Oh, it's just too much. It's like what in the hell? I didn't know. Well, I don't want to say I didn't know because there have been some people who've been fighting for our rights, and at a time we may not have clearly understood everything. But the thing is that our argument or the plight fight to talk about what is human rights for a person of color. What does human rights mean to people who are of different ethnic groups? What does it mean to them? What does human rights mean to white people? Okay? Because whenever we're generalizing it, it is for people for us to work on it. But going back to that neuroscience, okay? Now, you could talk about the peace and everything like that, but then when we look at, let's just say, people who have not been able to, or let me say the will, because if people could go from one end to one road to the next road, then they have enough common sense to do that. You know what I mean? Or they have the will to do it. But if you was to ask people, what's going on, you'll find people. It doesn't matter anybody, and you'll find people at a burst of energy to say something or nothing at all. Some people may have been reluctant to say anything because they didn't think another person was able to help them. So, what is it that we do? We do this. And what happens is that people find themselves in groups. I've been in groups where I wanted to talk about, oh man, I've been, hello, can we do it? Anyway, I'm not going to go there. Um, and the woman's they were sharing their story, and you'll be surprised that it's women, professional women, an array of women, professional, working class women and men or people. It's just probably easier to just say people because when you say people, that's everybody as opposed to saying men, women, children, people, unless we're specializing in that conversation. But people, we have our concerns, not only our own personal interdevelopment or interpersonal development or interdevelopment, but then it's also people around us. So you'll find some people be like, okay, well, they're not around anybody. But I suggest that we be around people. It helps us. So this is what happens. You're working, you have employment, and then those different attitudes that come together like that. Oh, and then here it is, you get some people and you're able to merge things together. The friction is there. I know, what does this have to do with emotions? Extra stuff that's interfering with your own natural flow. The genuine thought is that the help, you would have been as successful as you wanted to be in your career. Not so much about, oh, look, you're doing the things you want to do. Not when it's been interference. Something else want to be like it's trying to dictate, what's being said or what's going on in your home and all that kind of thing. I don't think so. You're just applying yourself because you're doing what you're doing. You understand? I guess you could find survival in doing the things that you want to do. You find survival in doing things, emotions. Oh, yeah. Going back to that laser and all that kind of stuff, and the Navy. the Navy, some of the military, they have that kind of equipment. Then they want to say that they're in the science with that. Talk about what they're able to do with lasers and brain. Now, I almost went into a conversation to talk about the meat. Okay, and I said, well, that ground round, and that ground round, when you look at a piece of ground round and what that looked like, when they ground it up and they put it together and you put two little halves in there, you know what I'm saying? You shape it without, messing up. Here it is, a little round. You almost got a brain. We're going to get back to this, but I'm just call it brain, a rain. Brain rain. Emotion. I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't think that my father would have wanted me to go through some of the things that I thought I was experiencing. I thought maybe perhaps his love for me would have been something different. And then lo and behold, to look at here it is, them saying, oh, see your own people, your own father. He did that. It's like, well, I don't know what to say. We do have parents and we have family law, we have family situations, and unfortunately people rely on you and all other kind of thing. And then I'm like, for real, then people they married, then you have to think about them being in their marriage and how they acted towards their wife and their spouse, how men act with their parents, vice versa. I mean, say people, men and women, but I was talking about my father, right? I didn't think that my father would have wanted me to experience anything that I was experiencing. They could sit there and call out, not Larry the little mixed baby behind the bush. You know what I mean? Not Larry the little mixed kid. And then you be like vouching for people and you're saying, oh, honey, those men, they loved me. I didn't think they heard as those men would do anything like that. Oh, those women, they love me. They care for me. I didn't think those women going to do anything like that. This emotion stuff is for real. Emotions. We cannot assume today that how people will behave towards you. Assuming that and then not being the cares of where we're learning from one another. Now it's just a general mannerism. But when you're talking to people directly, it becomes just that. There's one thing to talk about you in the workplace, and there's another thing to talk about intimate space. They'd be like, you hear some people saying, oh, well, honey, I don't know. I mean, it'll take you forever to know about Jesus. And then they'll talk about their relationship with their mate. Oh, I've been living with so and so for 15 years. I never known him to do nothing like that. And then he do it. Or she do it. Understand what I'm saying? Okay? So to go and have that little talk about they, and then we'll talk about the machines, and then it have an influence about behavior. What makes a person a behaviorism? And then they want to talk about how they watching and how they able to do this, and they want to sit there and talk about swimming and how we making that face and all the other kind of stuff. Baby, what you mean? And we still trying to figure out why they wanted a portion of Michael Jackson's brain. This shit ain't making no sense, but I understand where I'm coming from. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when we were looking at TV, they were having these little glass jars. And this is before we got Richie Rich. They had all different kind of body parts. They had penises. I don't know if I've seen that one, but they had brain. They had animal brains. You send your body to science. Ain't no telling what they got in some of them storage rooms. Shit, Dr. Onat. We are real live people. Why would they want to interfere with? Here it is, our well being. I said, well, you think, or that assumption that we will have a lot more people for real soaring into the schools because of their intellectual property, because they want to earn the grade. Not somebody sitting around trying to tell them about why they can and influencing them not to do this and do that. You can learn how to hip hop and all that kind of thing. I mean, bust a rhyme and all that kind of stuff, a lyric. And then, all that other kind of stuff while you in school. Save, and here it is, that very thing that we need to do when we're trying to apply ourselves. And then to be sitting there, we just sitting there and we laying up, we're sitting down, and here it is, somebody else is making money while they sitting there torn with us. And yet there's people who are willing to give their selves and their being up to science. I did not sign up for that. Well, after I looked at that movie and saw that little machine talking about how they able to do a lot of different stuff with our brain, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, baby, I ain't gonna lie to you. Say, honey, I know there was nothing wrong with me. Crazy. I was like, well, hold on, wait a minute. Emotion. How are we going to identify and talk to people and this, that, and the other? And then they want to be like, okay, well, listen, we believe in this, and I understand these situations, and blah 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 blah, and we get upset because somebody, I ain't gonna fib you, you can have it all, and some people have a whole cabinet filled with food and everything, and they want to go back to town with you about here, having a slice of bread. Do you think that's influenced by what these people are sitting there? They're not watching us to see how we doing one thing or the other. If they're trying to promote another something, another something, emotions.